I don't think so.
Take a seat. We would be honored if you would join us.
Look out, people. Look out. Please look out. I have both hands today. Finally got a mic stand, and I really like to talk with my hands. If you're listening to the podcast, I guess it's all the same, but if you're on YouTube, look out. Thanks everybody for coming. Acolyte's been wild. I'm super excited to get into it. I can't wait to get into the discussion. We have so much to talk about. By we, I mean me. Yeah, I'm Tyler. I like to blow things up because I like to blow things up. With me, although most Padawans want to learn Treewook, he took it upon himself to learn a language a little more nuanced. It's Cameron Porter.
That was dirty.
Always the overachiever you are,
Don't
Cameron.
yord me.
Listen, man, we got to talk about Yord because I started to like Yord a little bit in this episode.
I kind of did too.
I kind of did, man. I think so. What talk to me about Yord? Are you sort of coming around the way that I am?
Yeah, the way he and Osha kind of buddied up a little bit, and he was kind of there
Exactly.
to be nice to her. Yeah, I kind of he became a little likable in that moment.
That was the moment that I was kind of like, all right, Yord. There was some nice little moments here, and I imagine we're going to be getting more and more of them.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to get into all that. But boy, we got a few things to talk about before we get into it. We got some listener feedback. We've got pretty much just listener feedback, but we got a good bit of it. We have a call from Gager, a email from Gager, and also an email from Jordan. So we're gonna read a couple of these, and before we do that, I do want to talk for a sec. Cameron, I may have mentioned this to you. I can't remember if I did or not, but we're just gonna go for it.
All right.
Want to buckle up for a little bit, talk about the state of Star Wars,
Yep,
and fandom as a whole. Are we gonna jump into this? Listen. We don't really spend a lot of time on this podcast discussing things outside of the Star Wars on the screen.
Correct.
Like, we talk about maybe like different production things, different creative things. We don't talk a lot about sort of what we'll just call the discourse.
Sure.
We'll occasionally bring it into our discussion. If it's like, for instance, with Ahsoka, I felt like there was a lot of critique of the show, and if I'm just giving it from my perspective, I feel like people were missing a lot of what was being presented. Mm-hmm. And so we sort of discussed it a little bit then, but this thing that's kind of been going on with the Acolyte this past week is, I mean, really the whole time the show's been on.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Cameron. It seems a little wild, right?
There's a lot of heat. This show's getting a lot of heat.
And I want to discuss that because I've had multiple people contact me through sort of the podcast avenue, people that are saying things like, man, I just don't get why so many people hate this. Like, what's going on? It seems so good. I don't understand why there's all this hate. And guys, I gotta say, I don't think a lot of it's very real, and I don't think a lot of it is people that are actually watching the show. Everyone I'm talking to, and you can say, well, Tyler, it's just a bubble you're in. Fair enough. But it seems like everywhere I look, people that are actually engaging with the show are really enjoying it, including people that I talk to that are generally negative about Star Wars.
Interesting.
That's why I'm saying I don't think it's just the circle that I find myself in. There's all kinds of people in my life that will hate all over the Star Wars that I love. It's fine. Mm-hmm. It's totally fair. But this does seem to be something different. And it seems to be a lot going on, and I'm not brave enough for politics. I don't know about you, Cameron.
Not really.
We're going to pull an Obi-Wan here. All I got to say is what I told this person. If you're finding that there's like a bunch of negativity around and you're having a difficult time tuning it out, because it can be, when there's negative stuff in the air, it can, if you're not vigilant, bring a lot of negativity into your mind. I would just suggest this. Get away from whatever is feeding you that. Yeah. Maybe it's a YouTube algorithm. I'll admit a lot of the biggest YouTubers I see, they're hating all over Star Wars. Mm-hmm. It's how it seems to be how they get their following. It reminds me of Master Yoda when Luke says, "Is the dark side, more powerful?" And he's like, "No, like quicker. Like the dark side can be quicker. It can be
Yeah.
a shortcut, but it's not more powerful. And I just want to say, if you're finding yourself being a little bit discouraged by some of the discourse, maybe attempt to unplug, hide that channel, and I'm not saying build yourself an echo chamber. Have discussions, but have discussions with real people in good faith that are actually engaging with the thing because I see some people that are saying stuff. It's just like, how did you get that from the screen? They didn't. They're just not. They're making it up. So if you find people that are doing that, just my recommendation, if you want to hear it, just disengage.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of positivity. And when I say positivity, I just mean there's a way to air grievances and have a problem with things. Like we can disagree, and it doesn't have to be negative.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there is a lot of that out there. Go find those spaces. This is one of them. We're on YouTube. You can leave some comments. You can write in. You can call in, and we can have the discussion. I would love to. I've been posting lots of shorts. Been some cool comments and things. Like people have been chatting. Shout out to everybody who's commenting on the YouTube channel. It helps, and it's just fun for me. I'll just be going about my day, and I'm like, oh, somebody wants to talk Star Wars. Cool. It's a blast.
Yeah.
So please keep them coming.
I will say, I have my own nitpicks and gripes and grievances about this show, as I have had about every Star Wars project. But as a recap for listeners or people who are watching, the idea of this podcast was born out of us having a hard time finding Star Wars content to consume outside of Star Wars that was positive. People will dog on Disney Star Wars for this, that, and the other. Again, plenty of it has merit. Some of it doesn't. You filter that through your own opinions and stuff. Mm-hmm. But what we wanted to try to do by creating this podcast was creating something where we would just try and focus on the things that excite us and seem positive to us about Star Wars. Yeah. After party, we want to keep the excitement going about how we feel about Star Wars. Yeah. So, what you won't find on this podcast is us going on and on and on about things that we hate about it or why we're so discouraged with the state of Disney Star Wars, because although those sentiments are there and a lot of them can be valid, there's still plenty of positive to focus on. Yeah,
you still got like the Holy Trilogy. I could talk about these 3 films for the rest of my life.
Well, even in the Acolyte, there's plenty of things to complain about and plenty of grievances or nitpicks or whatever. But our focus is to try to remain excited and hopeful and just positive about Star Wars as a whole.
Yeah, because in general, there is a lot of really cool stuff happening in Star Wars. You can find something in every project. Every project may not be your favorite. Yeah. Fair. But there's, generally speaking, I can think of very few instances where I watched something and it was just like, I don't think it's good for me to go back and dip my toe in these waters again. There's generally something that you can find. Yeah. And, let go of this idea that everything has to be Empire Strikes Back or everything has to be fill in the blank. It's going to be different. There's going to be different points of view. It doesn't negate the Star Wars that you like. It doesn't negate what George Lucas said or did or wrote or whatever. Yeah. It's all just a part of this ever expanding thing called Star Wars, called art, called human creation. It's just all a part of it. It's all cool, man.
Ups and the downs.
Yes.
We're going to consume.
The light and the dark. It's all there. And we'll get into some light and we'll get into some dark, because we're definitely talking Acolyte. I will say this, because that kind of weird. It's kind of weird. It feels even weird to talk about it because we don't really talk about this kind of stuff. I just wanted to give an encouragement because I just had multiple people kind of be like, "Hey, man, what's going on? Why I don't get it. Why are all these people hating?" Because some people, that's just what they're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. They're just comfortable with hating. So let them hate into the abyss, and eventually, when no one's talking and they're sitting in the silence, they can deal with it themselves. That's typically how it works. But that said, I will also say this: as far as the past week has gone for our podcast, it's been the biggest week. Yeah. We had the most streams that we've ever had on the pod. Keep in mind, y'all, when we started, we were like just beginning to hit triple digits of an audience in podcasting. That's in other words, that's 100. It's we're not one of these giants. Or if you found this podcast somehow you found it. Cool, great. And we're glad that you're here. But yeah, it was our biggest week. Like we went higher than any other episode. It was the most streams in a single week, and the YouTube video is doing like another 40, 50, I guess on top of that. We're probably hitting like 200 this past week. It's cool. It's like it doubled. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Like whatever you're doing to help out the pod, it is helping. We really, really appreciate it. It's just, and it's also just fun because like more people wrote in, more people comment. That's what I'm looking for. I know you too. Like we just want to like have this thing happen like this. It's so fun. So we're here for it. It's great. It's been a good week. We're ready to talk Acolyte. Before we do have that listener feedback. So we'll start with friend of the pod, Ben Gager. I'll start by reading his email, but then he also sent in some audio clips, and I'm gonna apologize. I just had to switch a lot of my Pro Tools rig around from this hard drive to that hard drive, and I was having to build new sessions, and the audio is not exactly what I would like. So, but you'll be able to hear him. Just apologies. I did kind of apologies. I did kind of mess it up just a little bit. So here's Ben's email thoughts about episode 3. So we have a lot to talk about for episode 3 still. We're gonna jump into 4, but of all the episodes to watch one time and then you just jump straight into a pod, that was a wild one.
Now, usually, Tyler's mentioned in the past that I usually am like a sniper when it comes to people writing into the podcast, and I'll read the email real quick. I'll mark it as unread so Tyler can look at it, and then I'll kind of ponder it. I have not read any of this. So this is me raw.
All my notes are gone.
Tyler just drenched all of his
Talk
notes.
about going in.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us this week on the After Party.
We'll
Tyler's
figure it
notes
out.
are gone,
We'll figure it out. I'm glad I spent all that time. No, I just jotted it during my third watch through. I think I've got these episodes. We're good. So regarding Acolyte episode 3, here's some thoughts from good friend of the show, Benjamin Gager. I guess I should also.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
He says, so my initial thought after seeing the episode is that it is up there as one of the most important episodes of a Star Wars show we've ever seen. Great, wow. I'm going to edit this. Great criffing job calling that Osha and May came from a matriarchal society. I just assumed they had 2 moms, but did not make the Night Sister type societal connection. I don't think that the Coven, by the way, Coven, not Coven, like I said all last week.
Did you say Coven?
Oh, of course, like literally 50 times. And my wife's like, that's not how you say that word. Thank you. But I mean, to be fair, think of all the words we have to pronounce in Star Wars, but it's Coven that did me in.
Give him a Criffin break.
Give me a Criffin break. I don't think that the Coven is Night Sisters, so it's very cool to see that there are other types of witches in the galaxy. Agreed. The sole fact that May and Osha could be the precursor to how Anakin is created is the biggest revelation I can remember from any show Disney has made. This is my favorite Star Wars episode of any series that's been made, right up there with the final episode of Andor and the finale of Ahsoka. It was such a big moment to learn that there was no father. That it felt like this should have been a series finale type of mic drop. Mind blown. I'm with Ben on this. Like, I thought it was a crazy episode. I watched it a few more times, and it was just like, wow, we're getting this. What about you as you sort of reflect back on what last week was?
Definitely some bombshells dropped, especially kind of going back to the idea that there was someone that was created with the Force, like Anakin. But, yeah, I mean, Ben feels really strongly about this episode.
Me too. I thought it was great, and I know that he's going to be a day late on a couple days late. I think he texted me today and said, "Man, I can't watch it episode 4 until tomorrow." And I was just like, "Oh, that sucks," because it's great. Anyways, but yeah, I will say this about Anakin and when we're talking this stuff, it's not like I used to listen to podcasts and very I guess, with a lot of pride would kind of be like, man, no, it's not that guy on the podcast. It's this and this and this and this. And one thing I've learned is like, you really get a lot of benefit out of having a few days to think about things. And so if an episode airs on, say, a Tuesday, and you're listening to a podcast on Friday, that maybe that podcast are recorded on Wednesday, there's a lot of things that you've had time to think about that they didn't necessarily have the time. And now I'm feeling that a lot in this show. I do want to say this about Anakin, the idea of May and Osha being created like they were, that there was no father. It is important to point this out. And I don't know that we necessarily insinuated this or contradicted it or what. I'm just throwing it out there. And I'm not even suggesting that Geiger is saying this. But I do want to say that it just because there was no father doesn't mean that it's the same way that Anakin was born. What I mean is, it seems clear that there was manipulation for May and Osha, but for Anakin, it could have been more, quote unquote, natural. It could have literally have just been the Force, and perhaps it could have been like an answer to what happened here with May and Osha, like that this was created almost in an unnatural way, and then the Force may have responded with Anakin. I'm just saying, there's lots we don't know. Like there's clearly lots more story here, and I imagine we'll know more in a few weeks than we know now. But it's exciting. It's really cool. I still don't know what's going on with 90% of this show.
Yeah.
And boy, have I got some wild theories. I'm ready to get into it. We do have a call from Geiger, and it's a doozy.
All right.
So it's 2 parts. We'll play both parts. Here we go. I do want to say we're all good. We're friends.
What's up, party people? First of all, I have a bone to pick with you guys. I'll get to that in a second. But I just wanted to say that last week's episode was awesome. So many huge moments, big revelations. It just... oh, man, it felt like a series finale almost, just with so many big, huge moments happening, right? You guys talked about most of them, so I'm not going to waste time, but obviously the big one is the witches somehow being able to create Osha and May is what we're assuming, right? We don't know how. Is there cloning involved? Did they manipulate midichlorians? Is this some kind of, like, precursor to Anakin Skywalker being created by the Force? We don't know. Hopefully we'll get answers soon. But I absolutely loved it. And I just really wanted to get to something you guys said. Tyler, kept replaying this one audio clip out of context in your last podcast where he was talking about how Soul maybe had suppressed some emotions or memories of the guy that got starfished, right? Trying to prevent him from speaking the truth, as Tyler calls it. I don't get it, man. I don't know why you're so anti-Jedi. You think there's some conspiracy going on where they're trying to control the narrative on everything, and they're trying to erase any history of the dark side or any wrongdoing or anything like that. Like there's some secret cabal. I don't get it. Cameron also seems to have some negativity towards the Jedi. It just doesn't make sense to me, right? They are the peacekeepers of the galaxy. They walk in the light. They don't give in to their emotions. They are protectors. So this concept that they're manipulators, no, you've got it all backwards. That is the dark side, right? Now, is it possible that some dark side users have infiltrated the Jedi Order at times in history? Absolutely, right? I mean, Palpatine fooled everybody, right? He got into the Galactic Senate. He worked very closely with the Jedi and sent them on some missions and collaborated with them all the time, and he fooled everybody. But that wasn't the Jedi Order being evil. That was just them being ignorant and being blinded by the power of the dark side at that time. I think you have the same stuff probably going on here and throughout the history of the Order from time to time. So please stop this spreading of lies about the Jedi Order being manipulative. I can't stand it. You have no proof. It's all speculation. You haven't shown me one shred of evidence that supports the idea that the Jedi Order is bad.
All right.
Strong words.
Strong words.
I'll go first on this.
Please.
So, Ben, what I think about when I think of my, gripes with the Jedi is more so like an ignorance or a blinded by confidence type issue.
You said ignorance. Do you mean arrogance?
Arrogance. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
Just clarifying.
Yeah, it's like an arrogant. It's like you can't see the forest for the trees. Like you can't see how haughty you project yourself, or how so self-assured or confident you seem.
Talking about Jedi, not Geiger.
Talking about the Jedi. Yeah,
Just to be clear.
So I will say that, like, I get where you're coming from. Like, I don't want to hate the Jedi, and I'm not on this like. The
Have
Jedi
we
are
ever
bad.
called the Jedi evil?
No,
I don't
mean,
think that we have.
I see.
That's my qualm, Geiger. I think you're taking a lot of this stuff out of context, man.
No. I see exactly where he's coming from.
I kind of see it, but
I think my gripe is more so with and this is kind of how the High Republic is. It's almost like it was intentionally written this way. It's kind of written in a way to where it kind of like makes you question a little bit the integrity of the Jedi Order.
Yes, I want to talk about that too. Yeah.
So we're kind of going with that route, and it reminded me of the Star Wars comic right now with the trial of Lando Calrissian that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
It has less to do with them actually being bad and more to do with like the influence or the morale. So as far as hiding things goes. So when you think about the Jedi Order, like trying to keep things under wrap, and as we saw in episode 4, them literally being like, we won't alert the High Council. We need to handle this on our own. It's more about optics.
We're going to play that
clip.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're going to play
So that's my gripe with the Jedi Order, is that, that's kind of the era that we're looking at, and we compare. I know we talk a lot about the prequels and how they kind of came across, and your issues with Coyote Monday and like the arrogance of the Jedi Order at that point. It's more so it's less about hating the Jedi for me.
Yeah.
More so about like being able to go back through with a fine-tooth comb and look and see like, okay, I see where the arrogance came into play. I see where the blind spots were that got manipulated to push us to the places that we got to.
Yes.
So,
I'm with you on all that. Let me sort of bring this around, and then I'm going to end by saying that we probably, and I feel like we've had this conversation on this podcast before, we probably agree more than we disagree.
Tyler's hands are free this episode because he wants to bring the hammer and
use them in a force
bring
choke.
the hammer down on you, Ben.
So I do want to talk about the clip that I played out of context. It's not, come on, that's not fair. If you want, go back 20-ish minutes into our last podcast, the last YouTube video. I played a clip where the guy who got starfished, I love the way that that was said. Yeah, he got starfished. He is trying to say something about OSHA, that he sensed a darkness, and, Soul, calms him down. And there was just an interesting dialogue there. By the way, there was one in this episode too. There's a lot of really interesting dialogue that is almost like thrown away very softly. Yeah. It's actually brilliant writing, and I'm, attempting to call attention to that. I want to say this. I gave 4 different things that could be happening. I said, 1, it's an example of the Jedi ignoring darkness. That is something they do. I don't know what to tell you. It happens all the time in the prequels. It happens probably in the original trilogy. It happens all the time. A lot in Clone Wars. Go watch the Yoda arc. Go watch Clone Wars Season 6, Episodes 11 through 13. Sacrifice to whatever. Go watch those. I'm not just pulling this out of thin air. These things are here. A lot of this series, a lot of Star Wars is that yin and yang. When you look at it, there is dark in the light, and there is light in the dark. We're not one thing. The Jedi are not evil. I'm not saying that. But of course, there is some darkness there. You can see it. It is folly to try to ignore it. And even in ourselves, in real life, of course it's there. So I was saying, yes, it's an example of the Jedi ignoring darkness. That could be what it is. I'll say this. It could mean that it's foreshadowing that OSHA is going to have some dark side turn. That was an option I gave. I said it could be that it's just the yin and yang thing, trying to show that there's a little bit of darkness and evil in everyone. It could be that Soul stopped him so that no one knew what happened. Could be because Soul was trying to hide something. I don't think that that's true. It could just be a narrative choice. that if he would have kept talking, something would have been disclosed that we the audience are not meant to know until later. It could be all kinds of things. Of course, it is just speculation because that's what this is. We're just speculating and commentating. None of this is gospel. We're just talking. I don't know what to say, Gager. I guess we're just going to agree to disagree. I don't think the Jedi are evil. I like the Jedi. I like they use this phrase in this episode, the true Jedi. Palpatine says it to Rey. A true Jedi. A true Jedi? One that would serve and follow the light? Yes. I would aim to be a true Jedi in my life. But it just seems like it doesn't seem good to just blanket say the Jedi are great and I know that you're not saying that either, so I don't know where the miss is, bro. I don't know what it is. I'm sure we'll text about it. By the way, I think we texted for like an hour straight talking theories back and forth after all this. Whatever. We'll keep talking. We'll figure some things out. But I didn't want to not play it just because it seemed like it was negative towards us. Here's the second part of his clip.
One more thing I want to say is about mind control and suppressing of thoughts while we're talking about it. I think that
By the way, bro, don't suppress my thoughts. I'm talking about the Jedi. Just let me say my thoughts. Don't suppress them.
Mind control and suppressing of thoughts while we're talking about it. I think that the Coven has that ability and that we're going to see soon, this is my speculation, that they have somehow suppressed Soul's thoughts or memories. Maybe they mind controlled him and his eyes went black like we saw happen in the last episode and like we see in the trailer for the show where Kalnaka's eyes turn black. Maybe when they're in this unconscious state, they're not aware of what they're doing, because I don't know why Torben would feel so much guilt in episode 2 where he kills himself, because he's been carrying around the weight of the events that happened 16 years ago when May starts that fire. Because why doesn't Soul feel that same guilt, right? If he was there, he was involved like everyone else, why does Torben feel guilt but not Soul? And I think maybe it's because Soul doesn't remember those events from happening. Kind of like if you think of the Knights of the Old Republic. I know it's not all canon, but you have Bastila who's able to suppress Revan's thoughts and memories, right? And suppress his dark side tendencies and help train him as a Jedi and lead him down the path of light and righteousness. I think you might have a similar situation going on here, but it's the other way around. It's these evil witches that are manipulating Soul's mind and possibly the other Jedi that were there as well. Once again, you've got it backwards. The manipulators are the dark side users, whether it's the Sith or these crazy witches or the witches of Dathomir, but not the Jedi. So please stop this false narrative that you're trying to spread.
Why are the witches evil? I don't know that they're necessarily evil either. Anyways, thoughts on that bit? He made me think of something really interesting.
That is a very interesting perspective. I had not even considered that. I could see it happening though, and the more I think about it, the more I've sat with it, the more I lean towards the fact that the witches are actually more evil leaning. Yeah. So I'm with you there.
I think if anything, if the Jedi err to the light and the Sith err to the dark, the coven that we met is more comfortable with being in the middle. That's my current read. Mm-hmm. That they're more because there's all that imagery of it. It really actually looks like yin yang, like it was all in Kelnaka's hut. By the way,
yeah, I saw that.
All right, so here's my theory about what Gager said. I do think that the Coven sort of mind control, perhaps, but when their eyes go black, what I'm wondering is if a darkness that, hear me out, everybody has some of it. We've all got some level, and maybe some of it is more amped up than others. I'm wondering if and part of the reason why Kelnaka was so distressed, part of the reason why Torben was so distressed, what if they are aware of what it is they're doing, but the way that they are acting is actually something that they can tell is actually inside of them. What I mean is when Torben, something happened that we haven't seen. We're going to see it, obviously. Yeah. Something happened. there's that scene where Kel Naka in one of the trailers is jumping at Torben. Like, something is going to happen there. What I'm saying is, what if that whatever happened was less mind control and more of just amping up a sort of darkness that was already sort of there? Because remember when Yoda faced his shadow self in Clone Wars, he was like, "Recognize you, I do not." And it's like, yeah, that's the problem. And so what if what happened to Torben, what happened to Kel Naka, is they were confronted with their darkness, that's what that spell or whatever did to them.
Or
okay,
my mind just like exploded.
Please.
What's the creature called that we deal with so often in the High Republic?
Ooh, the Nameless?
The Nameless.
Yes.
This is like, now that we're going down this rabbit hole, this is kind of making me think about the Nameless and what the Nameless is capable of doing to Jedi as far as seeing things that aren't there or causing them to see darkness in them. So what if this might be crazy, but what if we're going to see a Nameless reveal in this show that maybe the witches have?
Interesting. So we really need
that kind of influences Torben.
Hand me that Timelines book.
Because
I didn't plan on this, but when in Rome.
The only reason, now that you mentioned that about the trailer of Kel Naka lunging at Torben, only reason I can think of is if there's some mind altering stuff going on with the Nameless. And for those who don't read the High Republic comics, the Nameless is this creature that what's the syndicate called? The
Nile?
The Nile, yeah. They use to affect Jedi in these insane ways. It gets in their brains, it makes them see things, and then it eventually kills them, usually because it basically like turns them to stone, right?
Yes.
So now that you're mentioning that, like, what if it made Kel Naka see something in Torben that was evil and lunge at him? Or if it made Torben see something evil in Kel Naka and made him lunge at, like, there could be some like different mind things going on outside of what the witches are able to do.
Yeah, bro, you're kind of blowing my mind a little bit. I did not think about the Nameless being involved. But
I didn't think about what y'all were talking about, and that kind of like sent me down the path.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up the Nameless here to give,
you know, go back
feel
and find
free to go into
timestamp of when my eyes went big.
No, I kind of saw you do it. You can go back you can go search it on Wikipedia. I'm not finding here. I don't want to spend too much time, but that's an interesting thing. We'll talk a little bit more about the idea of what might be happening on this planet as we get into this fourth episode, because I think there's some other things that are going to tie in. So we'll get into it. Gager, always appreciate your thoughts, man. I mean, genuinely, as much of a hard time as we give each other for seeing things different, I feel like that's the point of this show. And I'll be honest, I think that, you know, after watching the last episode and coming on this podcast immediately, it was like, bro, the Jedi, man, I don't really like what happened. I don't like what happened. I am more convinced after watching a few more times and considering and thinking that perhaps there was another party involved. That's all I'm going to say for now. Perhaps there was another party involved that was stoking conflict in between the Jedi and the Coven.
Interesting.
Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. That someone would come in and from the shadows, take this group and that group and stir the pot and create conflict. Yeah. And then make someone think that it was the Jedi who were evil. Mm-hmm. I think that that's what the show is trying to do. Now, that doesn't negate all of the things that do exist that are problems and blind spots within the Jedi. But what I'm suggesting is this discourse that we're having as fans between me and Gager, you know, et al., is part of what this show is doing. That's all I'm saying. And so it's really interesting. I really appreciate it, Gager. Of course, he knows, but to everyone, of course, no hard feelings. Please, if you disagree with what we're saying, like, that honestly is the kind of thing I want to talk about. Yeah. I don't want to be in an echo chamber, but I do want, whenever I have these discussions with someone that I disagree with, I don't want it to be with someone that just wants to make it about real world politics. We can talk about real world effects and we can bring in philosophy and all these other things, like, for sure, let's do that. But as long as we're actually engaging with the source material and having a good faith conversation, I'm not interested in other things. And, you know, anyway, so let's, I guess let's go ahead, let's switch some gears. let's get into the 4th episode here in just a sec.
You're listening to Star Wars After Party. We're honored that you would join us. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube for video and wherever you get your podcasts for audio. If you would like to help the pod grow, consider sharing with the Star Wars fans in your life. In addition, leaving 5 stars on Apple or Spotify, giving the video a like, or leaving a comment on YouTube are extremely helpful. Written reviews are the best way to help the podcast reach new listeners. We appreciate your support. Lastly, we want to hear from you. Record a voice memo on your phone and send it over to starwarsafterparty@gmail.com. Written email works too. Now, back to the after party.
All right, so here we are. We are getting full into episode 4, titled Day of the Acolyte, written by Claire Keischel. And this is where my notes start to get a little messed up. Oh, man. Is it Cora Donna? I'm sorry. And directed by Alex Garcia Lopez. Cameron, general thoughts this 4th episode. Why don't you give yours? I'm going to read Jordan's and then I'll give mine. What are your general thoughts?
General thoughts. Felt good to bounce back after last week's flashback to present time. I feel like we got a long way in the journey of the show itself.
Yeah.
And then finished with an insanely wild cliffhanger that
moment.
I was not ready for. I wasn't ready for the episode to be over. I was completely locked in to the episode, not expecting it to be almost at the end, and then it ended and I was like, you got to be kidding me.
I felt very similarly, but that's kind of the way this show likes to end episodes.
I texted Tyler very explicitly.
He said something about criffing something. What the criff, I think, was.
Dank Farrick was in there too. Yeah.
Jordan, I'm going to do my best to get your last name. Irizabal? It's Irazabal. Buddy, I have a hard to pronounce last name too, so I get it. Episode 4. Okay, it's all coming together for me now. The only thing that threw me off was May telling Kymir that she planned to turn herself in to Kelnaka. Maybe she was testing him. Either way, if the Sith who laughs, which is also in the subtitles, I think they refer to him as like the stranger, the Sith that we're talking about. I think the Sith who laughs comes from there's a great podcast where they really go into deep details called Children of the Watch. I think that's what they call this guy. Sorry, just for context. Either way, if the Sith who laughs isn't Kymir, I'm going to be dumbfounded. Great episode, good pacing, crazy cliffhanger.
Yeah.
So we're right there with you, man. For me, I mean, a lot of things seem to click into place.
Yeah.
And I began earlier this week harboring a bit of a crazy theory. And there was some stuff that happened in this episode that made me go, okay, this crazy theory might actually be true. And now I'm really locked in, because if they pull this off, especially because not very many people, like, it seems like a lot of people now are like, oh, it's totally Kymir, which, I mean, it feels obvious after this episode.
Yeah.
But up until even last week, people were kind of like, I see it. I remember when I told you after the second episode, you were like, what?
Yeah, I wasn't tracking with that at all.
And of course, we didn't even see him in the third episode. So this is the first time we're seeing him. So for them to pull that off so well, and I guarantee you there are folks that maybe aren't locked in on Star Wars podcasts and thinking about it all the time that are still like, who's that Sith Lord?
Yeah.
So the way the show is pulling that off is great. I think that the Kymir reveal is there, and we can, I'd be more surprised than not if it wasn't him, but I think that there's a bigger reveal that's just kind of hanging out in the background, and I'm very curious to get into some speculation about it. We'll stroll through the episode as cleanly as we can, going from the top. I love the opening scene with Kelnaka on. What was the name of the planet? Was it? It doesn't matter.
I can't remember.
Sorry, guys. We don't got the planet name yet. You get all these. I think it was like Kofar. That sounds right.
That does sound right.
But I just loved the sound of the planet. Mm-hmm. It reminded me of the prequels, specifically like Naboo. Whenever Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan showed up and met Jar Jar, it just had that sort of sound. Did you pick up any of that?
Yeah, or it kind of brought me back to like, and I know I've talked about this before, but like similarities between the soundtracks and like Halo. It's like very percussive, kind of echoey. tribal music kind of sounded. Yeah.
Yeah, and that I feel like that's present on Naboo, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
like
yeah,
in the episode 1. So that's cool. I didn't notice that, but I think you're right on. I did put in my notes, just notice all the, I'm just calling it yin yang. It's whatever Mother Anastasia had, whatever that was, Kelnaka had it all over his hut.
Yeah.
And so whatever happened obviously affected him in a big way, but he's like legitimately like obsessed with it. Like whatever it was, it wrecked him. And I think we're going to find out what it was in the very next episode.
I hope so.
Because again, he's getting a lot of shout outs here. Gager sent me this video and he's like, yo, watch this. There's discussion about a round table where Leslie Headland had mentioned that the 5th episode is going to be the one that everyone's talking about. And I'm like, the 3rd episode wasn't the one that everyone's talking about? And so I think that we're going to get the other or another side of what happened back there in the previous episode. So we'll see. But obviously something went down. Osha, Jackie, let's talk about that pairing. I really enjoyed it. Did you pick up on that at all?
Which, like them in the temple?
Them in the temple, also them having their discussion as they walked around what I'm calling Kofar, and I'll look it up while you talk to verify.
Yeah, I like the dynamic between the two of them. Very, I don't know, playful maybe.
It seemed like she was, it is Kofar, by the way. It seemed to me that she was really attempting to encourage Osha a lot.
Yeah.
Like you could tell that.
She's like poking holes a little bit. Like, you're sure you're not going to go after her? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
And kind of like almost like calling her into something more. It felt like she was almost enticing her a bit. She's like, oh, a true Jedi. And then, Osha go, well, whatever. And it as that happened, I thought, wow, Soul has trained her very well.
Yeah.
I feel like Jackie is an incredible Padawan. She's very much a light, and I just really enjoy her, and I am so sad that she's about to die in the very next episode. Like, it's really bumming me out.
Does she die in the next episode?
Bro, I don't know, man. I think a lot of people are about to die. It's going to be like Palpatine up in the office in episode 3.
What I did not like about this exchange
between
Osha and Jackie,
tell me,
was Osha's ability to just like write all of this off.
I
get where she's coming from, but it's also like let's humanize this a little bit. You have not seen your sister in 16 years, and you thought she was dead, and you're just like, well, she's a Jedi's problem now, not mine. I'm just gonna go back to being a mechanic.
Yeah, it's interesting. This would be what they would call the refusal of the call. It's Luke Skywalker saying, I can't go to Alderaan. I have, all this stuff I have to do here. It's the refusal of the call for sure. To be fair, she also is convinced that her sister is a murderer.
Yeah.
So that's part of it as well, I think. So it's probably a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But I'm with you. It's definitely a humanizing moment. Like she's definitely about to just walk out that door and go away. She doesn't want any part of this. Yeah. And I think it's an astute pickup there that she doesn't feel like she's up for the task.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it just landed very like, what are you talking about?
And they
this
sort
is
of
your sister.
Yeah, but they sort of doubled down with Yord whenever she's like, Yord, I need you to do this, and this is what made me kind of go, all right, Yord. Again, everyone's not all that. There's a little bit of good in there. I love to hate on Yord. It's fun. So one thing I liked about Yord there is that he very much had the ability to tell Osha like, hey, Soul sees something in May.
Yeah.
And like you being here, maybe this is something for you to confront. Like maybe not only are you going to face May, but you're going to face yourself, face your past, which is really what it's all about. Luke going to the dark side cave, he wasn't facing Vader. He was facing himself. Rey going to the cave on Octo, she wasn't facing anyone but herself. It's what it's all about. It's the only fight. It's always the fight against yourself. And so I thought it was really well done. I like that part. All right, Ki-Adi Mundi. Great. Ki-Adi Mundi's here. What'd you think about Ki-Adi? I was like, really?
Is that confirmed that was him?
Yeah, apparently he was in the credits, and it's not Plo Koon, by the way.
It wasn't. Dang, that's what I was more hyped about.
I was like, it's Plo Koon.
Yeah.
Kale was like, where? I was like,
Yeah,
there.
I was watching. I even went back and watched with the subtitles, and it didn't indicate. Like, it was funny. Some of the Jedi in that room, it indicated what their names were, and they were just like
interesting,
weird ones, or just like ones that we don't know anything about. And I was like, surely it'll say
Ki-Adi-Mundi,
Master Mundi or whatever.
Yeah. Well, apparently it was in the credits. I saw enough people sort of confirm it. I did look it up. I was like, is that Ki-Adi-Mundi? It was Ki-Adi-Mundi. It was your boy.
Tyler got more Ki-Adi-Mundi before he got real life.
I can't believe I got more Ki-Adi-Mundi before I got Hondo.
Hondo, yeah.
You got to be kidding me,
2024.
Man, it's just not my year. No, I gotta say, I'm now a huge Ki-Adi-Mundi fan.
Yeah?
No, not at all. It was interesting to hear him though, and it's cool to see a familiar face, even if it's my least favorite member of the Jedi Council.
Yeah.
Sorry to everyone who is tired of me hating on the Jedi. Before we get to, I have this clip that I want to play, and Ki-Adi-Mundi's in that clip. But I just wanted to mention before we go past it, Chimere really is trying to manipulate May.
Oh yeah.
And he's very subtle. There's that moment where he's like, "You have to kill the Wookiee. You made a deal,"
Yeah.
and he's still doing that like fake sort of. The only thing, it's blowing my mind. It's Darth Jar Jar. But for real, like he knocks over the suitcase. The only thing that was missing is whenever he told May to follow him, that he didn't go. Pull the thing that Jar Jar did back in episode 1. I mean, like he is very much just playing this crazy fool, and he's able to sort of remind May and sort of, I don't want to say command him, but I wouldn't be surprised to find out he was sort of pushing something out with the dark side when he says something along the lines of, "You have to kill the Wookiee. You made a deal." Like he says it like that, like it's all fun in a game or whatever, but come on, he's the Sith, right?
I think so. I'm pretty convinced now. Yeah.
We're on the same page.
Well, because I mean, it's like May disappeared from him.
Yeah.
And then the Sith shows up. It's like,
yeah.
I'm not saying I'm Batman, but have you ever seen me and him in the same room together? It's like
exactly.
He conveniently, saw himself out of the scene, and then there he goes.
Yep, there he goes. So there's a great scene here with Vernestra, and it's got some interesting stuff in it. I'm going to play it, and I may not be able to hold my speculation in, or at the very least, I'm going to ask you to remember a very important line. Okay, so here's that clip.
This girl could become a major threat.
She's not disciplined.
Yet she eluded you. And she killed 2 Jedi Masters.
Yes. But May targeted these 3.
4. Including you, Sol. The 4 Jedi stationed on her home planet when she was a child. How odd. She turns up all these years later, trained by one of our own.
You think a Jedi taught her?
Even a hologram can tell me that.
We must alert the High Council.
The High Council would be obliged to inform the Senate. A scandal like this would inspire fear and mistrust. We should handle this ourselves. We must learn who trained her.
So there's a lot in that clip. The first is we can't tell the High Council.
Yeah.
Because if we tell the High Council, then they'll have to tell the Senate. So in order to make sure the Senate doesn't know, even Yoda and all that, they can't know.
Well, even before that, she says the 4 Jedi stationed on her planet.
Yeah.
Like it implies, like, it makes you wonder, like, dang, how long have they really been there? Like, keeping an eye on them.
Oh, yeah, I get what you're saying. Because if they were stationed, it wasn't like,
It wasn't
we
like,
just
they
happened.
just happened to be
They
here
were
to
there
like
for
retrieve these kids.
That's a good point. That's a
Yeah.
good point. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, cool. Well, there's that. Let's I mean, we kind of know that obviously something went down, so we can sort of skip that. Let's jump to the fact that once again, I'm just saying, Jedi are hiding stuff.
Yeah.
They're hiding stuff. They claim to do it for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know that it works that way.
I mean, this is exactly,
I just don't know.
This is exactly the same as the rebellion with the trial of Lando. It's like this is going to hurt morale, so we need to do this as quietly as possible. We need to try to resolve all these issues like under the covers before something gets out and causes more of a ruckus, because it's really not that big of a deal. We can handle. It's like in this case, the Jedi are kind of trying to save face because this is leading down a road to some embarrassment and some failure.
Sure. And what ends up happening is the Sith realize the Jedi have the tendency to do this, and it gives rise to Palpatine.
Yeah.
You know, he knows I can do this and I can do this and I can do this, and the Jedi are not going to tell anybody because they don't want it to get out. I think that at any point, if the Jedi would have said, hold on here, this clone army was ordered by a Sith apprentice, we cannot continue using them, we will have to figure out a different way. Like, they could have done that, and who knows what would have happened.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is like, you can't just go about lying because you are sure that if you tell the truth, something worse will happen. You don't know that. I can't think of many cases in which lies are better than the truth. I don't know, man. It just seems like one of the things that the Jedi are blinded to. So, you know, please, if you disagree, you know, write us in, call us in. I'd love to hear it. But I thought that clip was great. We're going to put a pin in this idea until we speculate. Vernestra says, trained by one of our own, even a hologram can tell me that. Now, we know that May was trained by the Sith that we see on Kofar. Let's put a pin there, unless you have something that you...
No,
but
I was just agreeing. Yeah.
Let's put a pin there, because we think we know who that Sith is. We think that's Chimere.
Mm-hmm.
Chimere is not a Jedi. So, put a pin there. We'll circle back around when we get to some speculation. I did notice that Ki-Adi-Mundi could tell that something was up, because Vernestra and Sol ended up going out to the hall, and they were like,
they're keeping an
why
eye.
did you tell me what happened? And Ki-Adi-Mundi's like giving eyes over there. It's interesting too that Ki-Adi-Mundi is involved in this cover-up, and then he's the one that sort of said this line in the prequels that everyone's kind of been like, how are they going to get around this? The Sith have been extinct for more than a millennia.
Yeah.
Like, could it be... I don't know. I don't even want to speculate. I'm almost like, could he be just straight up lying? Like, does he find out in this show and Ki-Adi-Mundi is just a straight liar?
Yeah.
But I'm trying not to give in to the dark side. I'm trying not to give in to my hate. I'm going to listen to the wise words of Ben. I do need to give some of the Jedi a little bit more of a chance.
There you go.
I do think that there's some balance there to
Proud
be
of
struck.
you.
Yeah. Although I still can't stand Ki-Adi-Mundi. All right. So I thought that was interesting. I also love the line. Did you catch this? Where, what's his name? Chimere said, "You failed so much." I thought that was hilarious.
So much heat.
So much heat. What about the interaction between those two? Anything stick out to you? I had a couple things.
He's like such a little brother.
Chimere?
Yeah, to her. Like he's poking at her constantly.
Yeah.
He's stoking a fire in her. Promoting this, like, you're gonna get in trouble the way that you're doing things, but it's
that's interesting.
like,
yeah,
we
you're right.
need to keep this stuff as a secret between the two of us. Also interesting to listen to him kind of indicate like his debt to the Sith. This like narrative of whatever he thinks his place is if he's not the Sith.
He said that she said, "What kind of deal did you make with him?" He said, "I didn't make a deal. I just owe him."
He collects
You know
people.
him. He collects people.
Yeah.
He collects people is a very interesting line.
Mm-hmm.
Cameron, is there anyone that we have met on the screen that this Sith could have collected? Besides May, besides Chimere, could it be...
Kelnaka?
I don't know. I mean, he knew right where Kelnaka was.
Yeah.
That's an interesting... That's a good point.
Yeah, and Kelnaka he had requested to live in like total solitude. So much so to the fact that like the Jedi don't even really know where he is.
They haven't even had contact with him in over a year.
Yeah.
So maybe
And he's
Kelnaka...
obsessed with the coven symbols and stuff.
Interesting. I'm even wondering if there's anyone that's present in that little Jedi troop that could have been
under the influence.
Yeah, he collect. You know him. He collects people.
Yeah.
Could be politicians. Because there was a line earlier in maybe the first episode where Vernestra talked about their political adversaries.
Yeah.
Why do the Jedi have political adversaries? Well, maybe because one of their political adversaries is being controlled or in some way manipulated by the Sith.
Yeah, could be.
Interesting. When May asked Chimere about Osha, he does this really great manipulative tactic where he says, really fond of that one Jedi master.
Oh,
what was his name again? Soul?
Yeah.
Because she knows that
that burns.
or he
her
knows
up.
that she can't stand Soul. And to say your sister
He's
picked
fond.
Soul over you. Jab, 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 jab.
Oh, yeah.
Great, dude.
Yeah.
What a
I
manipulator.
felt that one. I was like, man, that made me mad.
It's good, man.
I like
it's
Soul.
bad.
That made me mad.
I love Soul, by the way. He's and quickly, Geiger had mentioned what was the deal with Soul that allowed him to sort of not fall to. I can't remember his exact words, but in the second part of his call, he talked about Soul and how Torben and Kelnaka both seemed to kind of have a big issue, but that Soul somehow had gotten past it.
Yeah.
I think that he really just made peace with what it was. I think he accepted what happened there, and I think it's as simple as that. I think that he is of the four. Soul seems to be the one who is the most on the right path.
Yeah.
The path of light. It
Yeah,
does
I mean,
seem
if we're
that
going
way.
to follow the narrative that Soul is very parallel to Qui-Gon Jinn,
Yeah.
then that would make total sense.
P.S. Soul, solar, sun, light. I mean, it's right there. Soul literally means light. So it makes sense that he is very much aligned with the light and that he has made peace with what has happened. I'm not saying that he is perfect or infallible, and I'm sure we're going to see some stuff. Again, it seems like in this yin yang type thing, what goes around comes around. It does seem like there is going to be some, I don't know, just something that he's going to have to pay for.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be quote unquote a free ride or a happy ending for Soul, because whatever happened on that planet 16 years ago, I do think that there was some missteps and unfortunately it's going to have to be paid for. I think that's what the show is really getting at, is that, give and you'll get, and it's just going to come back around. I mentioned in order. I thought earlier Yord insisting on the blaster was really annoying, but then Yord comforting Osha about her sister and sort of confirming that, she can handle it. She is up for the task. I like that. I got to give Yord his props there. Maybe like him more than anybody. So when we get into the forest, we meet these. They're called Umbra moths.
Yeah, dude, those things were wild.
They were pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I got a feeling that whatever is in that forest isn't just the Umbra moths.
No.
And we're going to find out a lot more in the next episode, which I assume is going to be called Night, since this one was day. Because Night set in right at the end of the episode, and I imagine it picks up right there.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just trying to follow the pieces there. But there was something that was said, again, really low, and in the mix, and I didn't notice it until my third watch through. Whenever Soul cuts it with the lightsaber, I think it's Jecki, she says, it went straight to the saber.
Yep.
And then someone said, it was attracted to the light. Very interesting. This idea of something that's quote unquote dark being attracted to the light. It seems like they're being very blatant with this whole dark side, light side being working together and being attracted to each other, two parts of the same thing. I don't know, man. Am I crazy seeing all this, or is it as, apparent as what I'm thinking it is?
I don't think you're crazy. I don't know if it's necessarily apparent, but
I feel like they're beating me over the head with it. I feel like it's everywhere. I think it's all over this show. I mean, the symbolism, I don't know. Maybe I just got my third eye a little bit more.
I think so. Tinfoil hat on.
Could be the tinfoil hat, third eye. I did. What I realized, I was always worried. Is it my third eye or is it my tinfoil hat? And what I realized is, if you put your tinfoil hat on, then you just cut out
Cut a hole.
a little hole. You can wear your tinfoil hat and have your third eye open at the same time.
Yeah.
Wild. We're getting to the end, and Cameron, I can't wait. Soul's the first one to sense that something's dark. Like, he notices it. I think that they ended up in the same area that May screamed at. In other words, where Chimera was trapped, and he was already gone, by the way.
Duh.
He's gone.
Yeah.
They were in that spot, and he seemed there to sense something dark, and Osha asked what it was, and he said, it's nothing. And then, of course, when we see May go into the hut, Kelnaka with the lightsaber cut across his chest.
Ruthless.
Ruthless. And Soul is the first one to sort of hear there's like this weird, like, I think it's like an oboe or something in the score, and Soul just kind of like turns around. Like, he's the first one to sense it.
Yeah.
So he's definitely the most attuned to the Force out of all of the Jedi that were there. Cameron, talk to me about this Sith and this entrance, bro. I could watch it on repeat like 100 times.
Do Sith fly?
They fly now.
Yeah, that was quite shocking to me. It was definitely like it was a scary moment.
It was creepy.
It wasn't like sometimes horror movies will, it'll go back and forth and like there's nothing in the background. There's maybe something in the background, and you're like, and you're anticipating it.
Yeah.
But this was just like, no, it was just all laid right out there. Like,
yeah,
it just panned back over to her from that one side, and he was just there.
It was a brilliant piece of filmmaking, man. I thought it was amazing. I could watch the Sith, descend from that spot like just the movement, the pace, the tempo that he moved with the score and everything. It blew my mind. It was like, this might be one of the best dark side entrances I have ever seen.
Dang.
I mean, it really did it for me. The tone in which they're doing it, this almost like horror-esque, like you said, it's perfect. It's perfect for this part of the Star Wars timeline. Like, I can't think of a better way to do it. It blew my mind. I hats off to all of the creators that were involved in that in particular. It's great, man. I really, really loved it. I thought it was incredible. It blew my mind. I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, it was, again, like way more of a cliffhanger than I was anticipating.
By the way, when we were talking about the trailer, I had mentioned that it had to be clever editing that had the Sith kind of like light his lightsaber and then, force push all these Jedi at one time.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It's just that he is that awesome. Like, it blew my mind. I was like, oh, that is actually what happened. I couldn't believe it. I was awestruck.
Yeah, it showed, like, my first thought when he did that was like, wow, this Sith is like unbelievably powerful.
Absolutely.
To knock all of them over all at the same time. I mean, part of it, sure, maybe part of it has to do more with the fact that, like, they weren't prepared. But I wonder if there's any tie-in here with that whole, like, power of one, power of two.
Power of many.
Not my favorite moment. In Star Wars.
I have watched it 3 times. Every time I watch it, I love it more and more.
Oh, God.
There's something about the intervals.
We'll agree to disagree.
Dude, well, how about this? Let's agree to give it another shot. What about that?
I've listened to it a couple of
All right.
times.
I'm just saying, like, there's something about the intervals that they do.
There is something about the interval.
It's
very,
so
like,
cool, man.
It's very...
It's very dissonant, but
Dissonant,
it's also
that's the word I'm looking for.
I haven't analyzed it. I haven't put on my music theory hat. Maybe I will. It almost sounds like it's not diatonic, meaning it sounds like it's outside of whatever the key of the score is. That the key for a moment shifts into something different, and then it comes back.
It doesn't feel like there's a correlation. It feels like it is actually just completely dissonant of just like two or three
But then
things.
I feel like it then comes back. Like it almost sounds like some kind of like borrowed chord or something. I'm gonna look into it now because we're talking about it, and now my brain is like, okay, tomorrow morning I'll look at that.
That training session with Mother Talzin.
That's
not Talzin.
Mother Anastasia.
Anastasia.
Yes.
Yeah, I almost said Endara. Sorry, more new names.
It's a lot.
The whole scene of that training session was like, try to push one, try to push two. So I wonder if there's any correlation there between the fact that here's this one Sith powerful enough to push many who should be all aligned with each other.
Yes, but do remember, it's ignore it if you want, but do remember in Rise of Skywalker, I am all the Sith. And I'm listening to Darth Plagueis now, and that idea really comes from the Darth Plagueis novel, which is not canon. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just saying it comes from the Darth Plagueis novel, that whenever you become a Sith master, all of the Sith sort of come into you.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the power of many would be the power of many Sith that now live inside of him. Because I am actually sort of shifting my thoughts to think maybe he is the Sith master now.
Yeah.
That he wasn't at the beginning of the show, but that he is now.
Oh, interesting.
Difficult to see. Always emotion is the future. Meditate on this. I will.
I was resistant to this idea.
10 out of 10 transition, by the way.
Thank you. I was resistant to this idea for a long time, for the entire show. But this past week, I made a YouTube short about it. Please check out the shorts. Let me know what you think. A couple people were very kind about liking it. They're fun to make. They do take like 20 or 30 minutes, so they're a little time consuming to do like a 1 minute clip. But they're fun. If you like them, please, keep watching them.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with the old algorithm. I don't know, man. I'm to the point when it comes to creating. It's like my job is to make the thing and put it out, and we'll see. The results will be what the results will be. I'm just here to having fun and making the stuff and putting it out. So I don't know. I'm also trying to get old Cam here on a short, which I did. I was able to repurpose a clip from our last episode. So, anyways, I made a short about it this week. I'm becoming, I don't want to say convinced, and I will admit it's a little more tinfoil hat than third eye, but I noticed some things in this episode. I'm starting to think that Master Indara might have been the Sith Master.
Whoa.
Hear me out. Vernestra says she was trained by a Jedi. I can see it clearly in this hologram. Who was May trained by? May was trained by the Stranger, the Sith we see in this episode, a.k.a. Chimere.
Yeah.
But Chimere was not a Jedi. So are we seeing a lineage? And if that is true, then that would mean that Chimere was trained by a Jedi, and that Jedi could be Indara. Hear me out. Geiger is right. He's right.
Infiltrator.
The Jedi were being manipulated. The Witch Coven was being manipulated. We were all being manipulated by a Sith Master who was taking the sides and pitting them against each other. Hear me out.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead if you want to ask.
So Chimere is standing in the middle saying, I will become master if I can convince this acolyte to kill my master for me.
Yes, we'll get to that.
What's more evil? What's more dark than manipulating someone else into doing your dirty work for you?
So hear me out. There was a sound. It's very clear there was a sound in the third episode that seemed to be somewhere around that reactor core. That whole place did not catch on fire and explode because May lit a book. Something happened with that reactor core. Someone messed with it. Might it be? I thought maybe it could be the Jedi, which it could have been. Could have been the Sith. And it might be that the Sith and the Jedi in this instance were the same thing, that it could be Indara. Now, I'm admitting this is full tinfoil hat, but hear me out. Just hear, let me keep laying this track
You're
as I
see
it.
Meat for the last
listen,
few
man.
minutes of the podcast, Tyler.
So
how have you made it through the podcast without exploding with this?
Dude, I am growing in my restraint in speculation. I can hold it till the end. God. I really, really can. It's just that, I did have to let my dark side out a little bit earlier when we were, but I'm back. I'm centered. I've meditated on the future. This is what I'm seeing. So Indara is, and I don't know how this happened. I don't know. Indara is a Sith Lord. Chimere became her apprentice. When they were on this planet, maybe she's the one who secretly, or her apprentice, or her master, I don't know, approached, this is all coming to me now, What if her master was someone who was there, one of the people in the coven? What if someone like, for instance, Coral was her master? She came in, they did some kind of quote unquote trade. I keep hearing people, Kayla kept saying it's like Rumpelstiltskin. They were given these children, but at what cost? And what if they find out, she says, what if the Jedi find out how you created them? Maybe because it was a deal with the Sith. Okay? So I don't know. I'm getting a little out there, but let me reel it back in. So Indara comes to this planet on Jedi business. She pits one side against the other. All this stuff breaks out. To what end and to what goal, I don't quite know yet, but it would be interesting if it was a ploy to take out her master. Now, she's the master. She gets an apprentice. Her apprentice is Chimere. She trains her apprentice. Chimere trains May. That's why when Vernestra looks and sees May, she's like, a Jedi trains you. Also would explain this piece of dialogue from episode 1. When Indara fights May, by the way, she was absolutely had no problem fighting May off, right?
Yeah.
And I know the way she died is a little inconvenient to this whole speculation. The truth is, I don't know. But hear me out. She says, who trained you? Now, she knows that's May. She knows it's not Osha. That is made clear in that scene. So, if she's saying, who trained you, is it because she recognizes the style?
Yeah,
and is it because it's her style? And is it because that Chimere, her apprentice, trained May?
Yeah.
Then she, for whatever reason, maybe it's just because she's a Jedi and she's great, she saves that person and she dies. And so Chimere sent his acolyte to kill the master so that he would become the new master. And now we're taking out all of these people who were involved. Again, I don't know. It's a mystery. I'm barely piecing this together. I'm not even sure it's true, but
it's tracking with me.
It starts to track.
Yeah.
In the same way that Chimere was I feel like, come on, I was cooking on Chimere at the beginning. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I also thought CX2 was tech. I just need to remind everyone.
Yeah.
You know, I get it wrong.
The Sith could also be Sid.
The Sith could be Sid.
Yep.
We don't know. But, dude, it doesn't seem that far out. It doesn't seem so outlandish that it could be that Indara is the Sith Lord.
Yeah.
Or that she was. Or that she is, that she survived because she could, I want to say in Plagueis, there's this thing where he's able to manipulate midichlorians in order to appear as though he was dead.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot that we don't know. We never really saw the body. Now, go ahead. I
don't know. I don't know how far back it goes, but if we want to tap into the sequel trilogy,
yeah, we can tap into. I'm not opposed to talking about sequel
project
trilogy.
himself.
Yes,
to fight Kylo Ren.
Yes, but
it ended up taking him out
physically. Yes, there's that, but also physically, that knife to the gut would not have. Our card is full. We just became audio for the last little bit. That's fine. You know, sorry, my mind just went to the camera. I think that whenever the knife went to the gut, if that had been an astral projection, then it just would have went right through. So there is that. I'm just going to throw that out there. So
fair enough. Yeah,
I don't know.
She did bleed. I mean, we saw blood.
Yes, absolutely. So, man, last theory.
I don't know if I can take it to.
If Indara, hear me out. This is a beautiful theory. If this all connects.
I'm glad that the camera ran out because I'm going to have to scrape my brains off the back of the wall before we get up.
If this connects, then it's brilliant, right? I mean, I would have to stand up and applaud the writers if this connects. If Indara is the Sith, okay? And she created all of this, going all the way back to Brindock and everything that happened. Remember, May, what?
Oh, I forgot the name of it earlier.
Brindock.
Go ahead.
May was accused of killing the entire coven. She's been accused of killing Indara, Torben, and now Kelnaka.
Yeah.
Listen, if Endara is the Sith Lord and she did all this, and if somehow she faked her death, then hear this out. May didn't kill the Coven. May didn't kill Endara. May didn't kill Torben. May didn't kill Kalnaka. May has killed no one.
May is a failure.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
What you think you see is not what's happening.
Yeah.
Bro, tinfoil hat fully on.
You're in a tinfoil suit.
Bro.
Head to toe.
Bro.
Can you breathe in that?
Look, listen. I feel like I have not opened myself up to fandom. Maybe everybody's saying these things that I've said.
I haven't heard anything about any of this.
But let me say this. If this is new to you, if this theory is like, oh, this actually seems like it could be something, call in or write in. And if you think that it's crazy, call in or write in. I want to talk to y'all about this because it's wild. And I guess we'll maybe find out next week. Maybe. But if they're able to make this whole thing happen to where, in fact, May didn't, like, this whole time we've been looking at her like she's a murderer and she's evil, and then we find out, in fact, no. Come on, dude. How wild would that be if that's what they're doing? Yeah. Insane. I have never experienced anything like this in any form of entertainment. Like, and it could be that it's not true and everything I'm saying is fake. There's a lot of people saying it's a whole Fight Club thing, that OSHA and May are really the same person. I don't buy that for various reasons, but man, if that's what's happening, it's crazy.
I feel like we need to go back and edit into the first 5 minutes of this episode.
What's that?
Hey, if you're really down on Acolyte and really bummed about it right now, go ahead and skip to, an hour 10 minutes or whatever.
Dude, I think
start here. Start with this energy and all this stuff that we're talking about as far as your speculations to get the juices flowing.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do.
Go back and listen.
I'll make some shorts. I'll make some shorts with video. Sorry, everybody, for my card filling up. I deleted a bunch of stuff, but apparently it wasn't enough. But that said, like, yeah, man, I'll make a short. We'll put it out there. I think our audience, everyone that's hanging around the Star Wars After Party area, I think we're all pretty high on the Acolyte. I feel like this is, I don't want to presume that everyone that listens is just like us. I don't think that that's true.
Yeah, no.
But I do get the idea that I think we're locked in. So I hope everyone made it. Y'all, I would love your thoughts. We always love to hear from you. If you don't mind, 5 stars, all that's jazz, likes on, subscribes on, whatever. I hate to pitch it like that, but man, it's cool to have the audience grow. It's fun. Again, I think from a very genuine place, we're under no illusions of grandeur here. We are the small little pod that could, but we just love interacting with you. And the bigger we go, the more we can get that. So, if you can help us out, please do. Cameron, anything else before we
I'm speechless.
All right, I got one more piece of speculation. I'm just kidding you. Let's land this ship. I always love if I can blow your mind. It's one of my favorite things. So I'm happy that maybe I was able to do that a little bit today.
Yeah, I've been on the receiving end. I mean, Ben kind of got me going a little bit earlier. You got me going. I'm definitely going into this next episode with a different perspective.
Me too. I mean, I think that there's a lot happening and a lot that seems one way that might be another. And I'm very curious as to what those different things are, because I don't think we have the full picture. I don't think we're barking up the right tree. No. I just don't know which tree is the right and wrong one. Something's going on. We can't wait to talk about it next week. Until then, Tyler out.
Cameron out.
This party's over.